John Walker, aka the new Cap, aka U.S. Agent, he was giving off like Homelander vibes. Hey there, what's going on? Welcome to Old Comics Access. You know who it is, Joe, the Beast McCoy, aka the Mixed Marvel. And hey, I mean, these episodes just get better and better with time. First off, I have to say, I know I wasn't the only one thinking of it, but please tell me that, when you saw this episode 2 of, Falcon and Winter Soldier, that John Walker, aka the new Cap, aka U.S. Agent, he was giving off like Homelander vibes.
Wow.
I said I could see this guy blowing any day now. But before I get into the proceedings, please make sure to drop a like down below the video and also subscribe to the channel as well, because I keep bringing more goodies. But back to what we're getting into. Alright, so what's pretty crazy, I had I had a couple surprises in this particular episode. But, I like how it started off nice and simple. John Walker, like we saw from the previous episode, just became the new Captain America, much to Sam, Wilson, and Bucky's disappointment. But, it was interesting. They tried to give him a more, chill, hometown vibe. And was pretty interesting, right off the bat, we hear some interesting music as he makes his debut out on the field to meet with Good Morning America, Star Spangled Man. So if you remember from the first Avenger movie, that was a pretty popular song, and much like they were doing Steve Rogers when he first became Captain America, had that America propaganda tour. That's kind of in a sense what they're doing with, John Walker here, promoting him, showing off to the world that, hey, this is our new Cap, and he's ready to get down to business. He's in particular a go-getter, and it seems like on paper, he is top candidate pick. But of course, those of us that know the comics, we know that, it's gonna take a slightly different direction. And of course, we see our buddy Bucky. He is extremely disappointed, and he is not feeling this guy at all. And it's interesting, if you notice in the background, of course, Bucky doesn't have furniture. It's reminiscent of, the conversation that Sam Wilson actually had with Steve Rogers when he was talking about how he was recovering from war and just adjusting to regular everyday life. Certain amenities like furniture, sleeping in beds and things, he wasn't quite acclimated to. If you're like me, the previews, they had me cracking up, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be good. And they definitely didn't disappoint. Of course, Bucky jumps right in like, hey, you should be the new Cap. What's wrong with you, man? And of course, Sam's just like, hey, I did what I felt was right, yada yada, but essentially I'm on the way to handle bigger and better problems. We remember from the previous episode, Flag Smashers made their debut, so of course Sam Wilson is on the way to see what's going on with these guys and stop them from causing any more trouble, but not without an exhilarating conversation about the big three: androids, aliens, and of course wizards. Or I thought that was just the greatest debate ever. Them discussing the difference between wizards and sorcerers. That was pretty good. And of course, Bucky's flexing his age by saying, hey, yeah, I read The Hobbit back in 1937 when it came out. And I was like, whoa, this guy is old as dirt.
Old timers?
I am not old. You are old. You are like 100.
I thought it was pretty funny, the staring contest. I was like, yo, this is going to be interesting. These dudes remind me of, the movie I used to like when I was younger, Grumpy Old Men.
Hey, drop that fish!
Bucky says, hey, what's the plan? And, Sam just jumps out the plane, goes into business. That's pretty reminiscent of Captain America and Iron Man, with an interesting conversation they had, and how, Iron Man just jumped out the plane. He's like, hey, he just had a plan of attack. And it was interesting, they're back and forth, while they're infiltrating the base of where, the Flag Smashers were. And I thought it was pretty slick how, Sam called him the White Panther, because of his time in Wakanda. But what was interesting, Bucky was quick to correct him and remind him, hey, they called me the White Wolf, because, he's being so stealthy at the moment. And then, of course, Bucky and Sam go right into action. Bucky hits us with that epic Winter Soldier run that we've seen in times past. I mean, this guy, he's like catching up to that, 18-wheeler, no problem. Now, I've spoken previously in my other video about how, Carl Morgenthau, aka the original Flag Smasher, there would be a gender bender twist, and this definitely confirmed it. We see that this lovely lady here that introduced herself in the most interesting of ways is none other than Carly Morgenthau, which, as I said in the previous video, would be the Flag Smasher. It seems that this young lady is spearheading this operation of, this crazy group. And, I mean, that was pretty wild, how she took Bucky out with, no second thoughts. And they definitely manhandled the poor guy, because, I mean, they definitely were super soldiers. So I think it's pretty interesting, too, when we catch up with the Flag Smashers, how they're viewed. That they're a threat to international security in general by others, especially people that, survived the blip or came back after the blip. They're seen as somewhat of freedom fighters. So, and I thought it was interesting, earlier when Bucky had discovered that they were essentially transporting some sort of vaccine. I keep in mind that, not everything's what it seems. And that this particular vaccine, quote unquote, could possibly be some sort of super soldier serum. As we learn later on in the episode, that she's being chased by none other than the infamous Power Broker, who I discussed in my previous episode. And what was interesting about Power Broker, he was known for, giving powers to various villains throughout, the Marvel Universe through sort of crazy means, I should say. And he's not an individual you want to cross, so definitely she knows that threat was more than just mere words, that this guy is definitely going to go to work on her and her team as well. So I'm very interested to see how that's going to play out. And, essentially if they're trying to create, basically an army of super soldiers to carry out their mission of basically getting back the world to the way it was during the time the blip. I thought that was pretty crazy. You got, Falcon, he's struggling, he's trying to fight him off, Bucky's trying to handle his business. Then U.S. agent, or I should say John Walker, comes out of nowhere with his partner. And I'm like, what's going on? I thought it was very suspect how they just happened to show up. John Walker had no problem, packing heat. I mean, this guy, boom, just shot someone, no issue. And I'm like, whoa, that's a big red flag. And then, of course, we see that epic throw of Bucky. Sam saves his butt. John Walker and Lemar Hoskins got their butt handed to him. And I was like, I thought maybe they had more of a fighting chance. Of course, hey, it is what it is. Mission not accomplished completely. And it was interesting when Bucky, Sam, Lemar, and John all met up later. Lemar Hoskins reveals that, his special code name is Battlestar. And this definitely brings us back to the Marvel Comics, because as we remember, Battlestar and U.S. Agent worked together. Sam was not prepared for what Bucky had next. He wanted to introduce him to somebody in Baltimore. And I thought this was very in-depth Marvel history that we got able to step into. We are introduced to the legendary Isaiah Bradley. And in case you're wondering who Isaiah Bradley is, he was the unknown Captain America. And Sam and a great deal of others, including Steve Rogers, had no idea about this gentleman's existence. Isaiah Bradley, this legendary forgotten Captain America, made his first appearance in the first issue of Red, White, and Black. And I did like the part, though, when him and Bucky got into it, and essentially how he remembers in the 1950s during the Korean War that, yeah, when Bucky and him had crossed paths, because Bucky was a Winter Soldier at that time, working through Hydra, that he kicked his butt. I did get a kick out of that. In the 1940s, how hundreds of black soldiers were taken into U.S. government custody and terribly tested and put through great ordeals so they could discover, a type of super soldier serum like Steve had previously. Now, during this time, Steve Rogers was on ice, so the government was trying to find any means in which they could recreate this. Fortunately, Mr. Bradley was in prison or, incarcerated for roughly 30 years. And it's interesting, at least according to the comics, he was locked up for taking Captain America's, mantle and a shield without the government's permission. Even though he was successful in carrying out what he needed to be done, they took great offense to this, and unnecessarily they incarcerated him. And then there was continuing testing. Now on the show, you're saying definitely there was some Hydra testing and some other various things. We notice the gentleman, the young man who is his grandson. Now this guy definitely is a key character in the comic books as well, especially for the new age of heroes. He is none other than Elijah Bradley. And what's pretty cool about Elijah Bradley, he gets super soldier powers as well. And that's definitely a whole nother ball game to get into. But I definitely hope that, they definitely explore Elijah Bradley becoming the hero known as Patriot, later on in the series or down the line in MCU universe. And then it was interesting to note that Bucky had to be arrested because he missed his court mandated therapy session. And so he's taken back to the station, and man, who do we see show up? That guy that they hate the most, John Walker, aka the new Cap. And I think Bucky would have rather stayed in and got out by the means of John Walker. And then, we had this interesting therapy session between, Sam and Bucky, and it was pretty hilarious. Therapy. And then we had that interesting conversation between, the new Cap, aka U.S. Agent, Battlestar, Sam and Bucky. And, they wanted to go their ways. And basically, Sam expressed to them, hey, we're free agents, we're flexible, we don't need you. And then you see that part, that one part that's like letting you know, oh, this guy is really nuts. When he tells them that, stay out of his way. And it's like, whoa, we get to see that kind of cuckoo side of him. So, yeah, that's the U.S. agent I know from the comics. So, yeah, he's slowly, going to the other side. And I absolutely was excited when I saw that Bucky and Sam were finally going to see Baron Zemo. And obviously, we know Bucky has a connection to Baron Zemo. In particular, his time in the past with Hydra, and of course what we've seen in the previous, the Civil War movie. And also we know that Zemo is definitely on his redemption list, so I'm very curious what their opening conversation is going to be. I thought it was so fitting, the chess pieces, because basically we know Baron Zemo is a master of evil, and essentially his greatest gift, I feel like, is his mastermind. So it's going to be interesting how he moves everyone around and maneuvers things in his favor to, gain his power. Because like we know, especially been a fan of the comics for a long time like myself, it's always about world domination and proving his prominence in the world. So I'm very excited to see how this is going to play out in the following episode. And what's about to go down. Alright, so that wraps up everything here on All Comics Access. This is kind of my 2 cents on this epic episode. Cool little breakdown on everything. Definitely let me know if I missed anything, any cool little things that you spot on the episode. Also, what are your possible thoughts for the next upcoming episode that we'll be seeing in the following week? Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also if you want any cool Falcon Winter Soldier merch, I have a nice little affiliate link down below, helps out the channel. And as always, folks, you do matter. I want you to stay awesome, keep your head up, and always remember, whenever you're feeling down and out, rise up and geek on.